For our last keynote of the day, please welcome the co-founder and former CEO of DreamWorks Animation and managing partner at WndrCo, Jeffrey Katzenberg. He will be interviewed by Shoptalk Senior Vice President of Content, Krystina Gustafson.
Welcome to Shoptalk.
I'm super excited to be here.
We are super excited to have you, and I think a lot of folks in the audience know you for your very storied media career. You were the co-founder of DreamWorks, as we just heard, but also the former chairman of Walt Disney. So I think a question on a lot of folks' minds is probably, why Shoptalk?
It actually, in 1 second, it'll actually make be a total connection. So for, I guess, almost 40 years in media and entertainment, one of the things that I think was a hallmark for all of the companies that I've been involved with was the great partnership that we actually had with retail and CPG. Our movies lived and had their second and third and multiple lives at retail. And whether it was a Little Mermaid doll or Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, the opportunities that existed for us to have storytelling continue on outside of the core film product itself was extraordinary. And so whether it was a soundtrack for The Lion King, Shrek DVDs, does anybody remember clamshell VHS cassettes? I don't think there's anybody in this audience old enough for that. That's actually one of my very first real missions was having arrived at the Walt Disney Company in 1984. There was this incredible lady executive who ran our home video business, who took me to Bentonville for the first time, I think in maybe 1985. And they were a regional merchandiser at the time. And we actually introduced to them the home video business, which has gone on to have been spectacular. I don't want to say how many times I've been back to Bentonville over the decades. It's a lot. But so that partnership has been something I've appreciated, and had me engaged and excited about retail and the opportunities around retail.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure there are a lot of folks in this audience who can relate, who have purchased your products for themselves, depending on their age, or now even maybe themselves and their children. But it's been about 6 years now since you have moved into your most recent venture, which is founding WndrCo. For folks in the audience who aren't familiar with WndrCo, you guys invest in and incubate companies in the future of work, cybersecurity, and consumer technology spaces. What's been the most exciting part about that transition?
Well, in a way, it's kind of a parallel for me, and so I'll go back and I'll just say when I first went into the entertainment business, I had worked in politics and government in New York City in the late 60s and early 70s, and when I was 23 years old, I was really looking for what would be my next career opportunity. And so in 1973, if you wanted to go to the place of great entrepreneurial, exciting, and you wanted fortune and fame, Hollywood was the place to go. 6 years ago when I sold DreamWorks, and I asked myself, if I were 23 years old today, and I wanted those same things, it actually would be in technology. Yeah. And when you look at the impact that digital technology has had on every facet of our lives, both our personal lives and our work lives, from, say, 2010 to 2020, almost nothing looks the same. It actually is really quite remarkable. And yet, if you look at from 2020 to 2030, it's going to be 10x the impact. And all of the excitement and enthusiasm that we're having right now in this moment today with the introduction of AI, we may be at that next, moment, that was the Industrial Revolution. everything changed out of it. Jobs changed, opportunity changed, everything was reinvented around it. And I feel like we're at that moment again where that's about to happen for us. And to me, that's a very exciting place. And so landed in the right place, I think.
Yeah, so here you are. I would agree with you. It does feel like we're at a massive inflection point for the industry. Sean Downey from Google was up here earlier talking a lot about AI, responsible AI, and just kind of their viewpoint on this. You guys have invested in a company called Natomi, which isn't quite generative AI. I think you guys are calling it sanctioned AI. What's the difference?
Well, day from night, and I actually think, particularly for this audience, it's the place where I would have my eye on it. Now, interestingly, everybody would, I think if you just ask people in general, okay, well, there's generative AI, which is a creative tool, and there is, let's call it either sanctioned or produced or edited AI. Which one is Jeffrey going to pick? And you would have thought it would have been the creative AI. And that's not to say I'm not super impressed and excited about what's going to happen. And that's where so much has occurred in these last few months, which has just opened people's imaginations in an explosive way. But for people in this room, the actual tools that are going to be transformative for them are going to be these produced, sanctioned, edited AI, in which there is absolute reliability around what the engagement is going to be with your customer. You cannot be in a position today, the brand liability, the risk of actually having generative AI say the wrong thing in the wrong moment, factually be inaccurate. I mean, if you're trying to get an airplane reservation and it's, at all inaccurate in it, or anything about it is not correct, particularly things that are interpretive of it, it's a disaster. Your brand will get crushed.
Yep.
Overnight.
I think we've all had those bad chatbot experiences too.
Well, but you haven't had yet the sort of this generation of AI applied to it, which is what Natomi AI is doing. And so the deployment of produced AI is actually going to be invaluable to, I think, to retail and for your in-store as well as your online business. When I was at Disney, one of the first things first things you learn, is they don't call it customer engagement, they call it customer love. And so the attention to making sure that every encounter with someone anywhere in the Disney enterprise is of the highest quality, obviously 100% reliable, is essential. And so I bring that point of view to what we're doing today, which is, I think the opportunity for Natomi AI is to deliver customer love.
Yeah.
And I think today, if you are a brand, you are selling to consumers and customers today, and you're not improving that customer engagement, that customer service, not only is it essential, it may be existential. In order to maintain the loyalty that you want from your customer, the engagement that you want with your customer, you have got to be reliable.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's dependent on the inputs that you provide it. So I think that makes a ton of sense. I want to shift gears and talk about NFTs now, because I know you guys also invested in that space. Very hot last year, a little bit challenged in the more recent past. Talk to me a little bit about that space.
Well, I think, again, there's two sides to the NFT world. There's a part of it which I believe in because I collected baseball cards as a kid. And so the idea that you could buy that moment, that clip, when Kobe Bryant scored his 80 points in one game, or LeBron James, a couple of weeks ago became the highest scorer of all time. Is there any question about my interest in basketball and the Lakers in particular? Anyway, sorry, I digress. But to have that moment, to own that moment, And to be able to have it as something that you, as a souvenir, that you save, that you revisit, that's what this generation is interested in. It's a digital product, and why doesn't that have collectability to it? Bored Apes Yacht Club? Not so sure. I mean, there's where, again, I worry that, just this whole world of meme stocks and crypto, and it's all feels like during COVID, we as a culture and a society all came here to Vegas virtually and put $10 on 32 black. Really? That's what that stuff feels like for me. It doesn't feel real.
So does it need to have a reason for being? Is that
yes, and I think a collectability about it. But people collect books. You read a book, you want to put it up on your shelf. Again, generationally, I mean, people are going back and buying records again.
Yeah.
And like the collectability of that. And so I do think that there are real goods and real value, that this generation, a digital good, has collectability to that. Take some of the hype out of it, and I think NFTs is a real business.
Talk to me a little bit about your investment thesis. I'm sure there are a lot of startup founders in the audience who would love to get your ear after this session. But what are you looking for? What's a must-have in a company as you're looking to make an investment?
Well, I think it starts with the person itself. The characteristics of a great entrepreneur. The drive, the ambition, the perseverance. I think if there was one word I had to pick above all else, it would be perseverance. It's so improbable, if not impossible, to get from 0 to 1, which is really sort of product market fit and some revenue and on a business model that can be profitable. So we're looking for that. It starts with the person. Obviously, the idea becomes essential to that decision making, and then just the areas of interest for us, as you said, it really is what we sort of think about as the consumerization of software, meaning where can software make individuals either more productive or ease of use, or both in your business life as well as in your personal life. So where is that intersection? Oddly, because of my partners, the place that we ended up actually making the biggest investments in and have the sort of the largest part of our portfolio is in cybersecurity, and specifically consumer cybersecurity, which you're all going to be hearing a lot more about in these next 12 or 18 or 24 months, because it's gotten so out of control. So here's just a couple of quick statistics, which is in 2020, digital theft was $3.4 billion here in the U.S. In 2021, it went to $6.9 billion, and in 2022, the numbers just came out 2 weeks ago, it's now $10.3 billion, like this. And so, just to put that in, burglaries, in-home burglaries, this last year was at $4 billion. So one is going like that, the other is like this. And, if you think about it, for all of us, if I were so bold as to come to your home and break into it, what would I get? Some electronics, a computer, some TV, maybe a little bit of jewelry, pretty much no cash. But if I broke into your phone or your online presence and got anything, your credit card, your bank account, your social security number, any part of your identity, everything in your ecosystem is actually now vulnerable. And here's a shocking one I heard yesterday, which is in 2022 there are 1 million identities of children under the age of 16 years old that have been stolen and then exploited. So it's a pretty scary time, and this is an essential thing. I think with this company called Aura, we have built, sort of best of brand in this, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it. So, it's one of those things where you can do good while doing good.
Yeah, no, it sounds much needed. Those are some terrifying statistics. Let's shift gears and talk about something else that was terrifying in the recent weeks, which was Silicon Valley Bank. Obviously, that really shook the VC world. It shook the startup world. It shook, quite frankly, the global banking sector. And I know you guys had a number of your portfolio companies who are also holding their funds there. Talk to me a little bit about that, and I think even more specifically, how you kind of help your companies manage times of crisis like that.
Well, it was a tough couple of days. My partner who lives in Silicon Valley, the two of us were there that day, and we were driving in a car together when the CEO of SVB had his webcast or whatever. And he's about 7 or 8 minutes into the webcast, and he says, as long as our depositors don't panic, we're fine. I looked at my partner and went, did he just say that? And so we listened for another 5 or 6 minutes, and he comes back and he goes, and this time he says, as long as our customers don't panic, we're fine. And I turned to Sujay, my partner, I said, panic. Like, run for the hills. And I'm not kidding you, we had 2 of our portfolio companies, who had about $15 million in cash each to their name. It was all in SVB, and literally had the founders drive over there, and it turned out to not have been needed, but I can tell you on Thursday night we were feeling a lot better than many others because they got a cashier's check. But here's the lesson out of that for all of us, and it's, which I would just say to any entrepreneur, any founder, any startup today, have a relationship with a bank, a local bank. Someone who knows you, if you have that, someone in the world of where your business is that can be your day-to-day, and have in that bank somewhere 2 to 6 months of working capital. And then the bulk of your capital should actually be with one of the too big to fail, JP Morgan Chase. And that's the safe thing to do, which I would say to you is a lesson we've learned, just like I would share with everyone else today. You cannot take it for granted, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I want to stick on this thread because I jotted down, we have almost 500 founders in the audience, a number of whom are from tech companies selling into retail. What's your biggest piece of advice to the companies that you're working with about selling into large retailers?
I think the first thing is get proof of concept. You need to be able to prove. Everybody always wants to go sell to, Walmart or Target or Lowe's or all the big ones, right? Like, oh, if I can only get that sale there, it's everything. Well, fine, but you need to actually walk your talk before you do that. And I would urge you to find a way to build up a relationship with a SMB, with a smaller business, get a proof of concept there, refine what it is, and actually get some logos signed so that when you walk into one of the big companies, you actually can show them real results. To think they're going to be the ones that you're going to get picked out of all the tens of thousands of products that get offered to them every year, unless you're, a Kardashian, it's not happening.
I like that. Well, sticking with that theme then, for the folks in our audience who are, in different roles, really just kind of anyone who's working in retail, what would be kind of your parting advice for them?
I don't know whether it's parting advice, but I will tell you what has become my mission statement from early on when I didn't really understand it was my mission statement, but it's something that was just a way in which I went about things. And it's 2 words. It's actually quite simple. It's exceed expectations. And what I found out very young when I was a gopher, just coming on up in the world is that I always tried to do things a little bit better than was expected of me by my bosses. And I found that when I did that consistently, all the new opportunities would come my way. If I took a job and I did it really, really well, they'd give me a bigger job, and then a bigger job, and a bigger job, and a bigger job. And so that sort of became, this sort of call and response that I would do. And as I grew up in the industry and in my businesses, I started to realize that exceeding expectations applied to almost every part of what I did. And so, I'm sure many of you have, sort of regular daily, or weekly meetings and things that, they sort of a rinse and repeat, and it's just hard to keep everybody energized and up. And so I would come into these meetings wanting to exceed the expectations of people that worked for me, not just people I worked for. And then I thought about it in terms of my product and the things that I made, and I realized that if the things that we produced, whether it was a Little Mermaid doll or a great movie or a television series, if we exceeded the expectations of our customers, we did really, really well. And our businesses would grow, and we would get great word of mouth, and things would continue to be successful. And then I actually started to think about that in the context of my rest of my life, which is, I don't know about you, if you're blessed in the world here, you've got a handful of friendships. And I started to think about what it would mean to me to exceed the expectations of my friends. I've been married for 48 years. I thought about how to exceed the expectations of my wife.
That's probably the hardest one,
It's a
right?
really, really high bar. And so I've just come to believe that exceeding the expectations of people in every part of your world and your life of what you do has incredible, incredible rewards with it.
Yeah,
So.
no, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeffrey, and thank you, all of you.